Okay, we are go.
Hey, we are all systems go.
Right.
I was so excited this morning. I forgot my Vision Pro. Had to go back home, get it, come back in. But today, I feel like this is an episode we've been waiting and teasing
for a long time. Yes,
and maybe unnecessarily wait. I don't know why we wait so long. But yeah, today is a fun day where we finally get to show off the Apple Vision Pros.
Right, we're going to put them on and we're actually going to do the podcast with our Apple Vision Pros on.
That's right. And it is kind of funny because it dawned on me as I was flipping on all the cameras. I was like, we're not recording in Spatial anymore.
We sort of moved on from there.
Yeah, but like I said, we've got the workflow, we've got everything there.
Yeah.
But I think that's part of what we can talk about today too, is just not just how we've been experiencing them, because we've, anecdotally, we've had our own experiences with the Vision Pros, but also talking just about more broadly
the technology and where it's going and what the opportunities are.
And some of where some of those affordances are. Because again, I think there's a big difference if we're looking at this as a, like a consumer product, like an iPhone or something like that, versus looking at this whole category and where that's kind of shifting and moving.
Yeah. So this is definitely a podcast where watching the video will be more instructive than just listening. Although hopefully we'll be able to capture the whole feel of it.
That's right. If you can't watch, you'll just have to imagine what Andrew and I will look like with nerd helmets on.
Yes,
right?
Yeah. So, but this is really an experiment. This is Modem Futura, the Apple Vision Pro edition.
That's right. And that's what I love. I love that we do this too. Is we're like, you know what? Like always, how could we make things more complicated and potentially disastrous from a production? I'm like, I know. Let's throw on some VR, some vision, spatial computing,
whatever,
whatever we want to call them.
Yeah.
But I think that'll be a lot of fun because, like I said, I think we've been teasing this because, and it's been interesting too because also the time was right. I think because also we have. Just recently, by the time from the date of recording, I think it's a week on from the Apple's announcement of the M5.
Right, the new upgrade.
Refresh.
Yes.
Yeah. And in like many products, this happens where they're considered just refreshes, where the actual technology has not changed, other than usually just the processor. Because again, the original one that we have has the M2 processor in it, and of course they've now putting the M5 in. So you can't have a product on the shelf with an old processor that they have to keep making. It's kind of normal for those products to get that refresh. But I think, which we'll talk about too, is I think we also learned a few things about the Vision Pro and some of its limitations and the way it's sort of handling some of the complexities just based on its update.
Sure.
So I think that's really cool.
Okay. Are we just going to sort of dive in then? Do the intro we can sort of don the headsets?
I say we should because it's going to, because one, also we're going to, we'll see how good of audio this makes of us, the time it's going to take us to put them on.
We've got to work out how to not have that dead air.
I'll just.
Apologies ahead if you have those little sort of dead air spaces.
That's right. Or, it's one of those things, people have told me my entire life that I talk too much. And I think this is what I was made for.
This is the antidote.
I can fill the gap, right? Just the nonstop talking.
Okay, you're on.
All right, so we'll take a break real quick, and then when you rejoin us, we'll introduce the show and we'll put our nerd helmets on. How about that?
Sounds good.
All right.
Initializing waveform.
Modulating signals for transmission.
Exploring the possible, probable, and preferable futures.
Welcome to Modem Futura. All right. Well, welcome to the Spatial edition of Modem Futura, the show that explores the intersection of technology, society, and the possible, probable, and preferable futures, asking deep questions like, what does it mean to be human in the future? And what does it mean to be human when we start exploring our world?
Putting virtual reality headsets on us, yes.
That's right. I'm Sean Leahy, joined by my co-host.
Andrew Maynard.
And today, like I said, we've been teasing this up for a while that we're going to try our Apple Vision Pros. We've both been using them quite a bit independently for
the last 18 months or so, yes.
Yep. One thing I will say too,
and we should actually say, because I suspect there are many people who are listening to this thinking, what the heck is this?
Yes.
So we should say that the Apple Vision Pro is Apple's virtual reality headset. So you put it on and it effectively immerses you in a virtual sort of reality, but it's also got this thing called pass-through, so you can actually see the world as it is around you on two internal video
That's
screens.
right. And that's a good point too. I actually made a note. I have some show notes here, and one of the things I had called out was being able to describe kind of what spatial computing is. Because so if you watch if you've seen the marketing, so either the websites or if you've seen like I haven't seen a television ad for the Vision Pro. Probably not. I don't know.
I don't think I have either.
There might be some. I don't know. There might be something. But if you've seen any of the hype or the productization around it, one thing that's very clear from Apple's communication aside is they never use the word VR headset.
Yes.
Like ever, right? Which is intentional.
Yep.
To try to set it apart from many other things. When you see a headset like this, you oftentimes think of that's the first thing you think of as VR headset.
Yes.
The Meta Quest used to be the Oculus Quest and things like that. The Oculus Rift, that was the tethered one. Did you ever have the tethered one?
I did.
Yeah.
Yes. Yep.
So kind of going back, 10 years or so, we had this reemergence. So VR headsets or some immersive headsets, the technology around that themselves is not new.
It's been around for decades.
Yeah, I mean, I want to say it's almost 30, since the mid 90s.
Longer than that. I mean, I remember going to exhibits with virtual reality back in the early 1990s.
Yeah. So 30 plus or minus years, depending on where we're going. But, and I remember hearing too of some of these early early demos of these things that where they're basically attached to at the time would have been like a Cray supercomputer or something, right?
Yes.
And it's like the umbilical. They're tethered, meaning the
you got a wire.
The headset is physically wired to the computer, which we just lovingly refer to as an umbilical cord, right? So but it would be suspended from the ceiling, so you don't get tangled up in it because right away that was a challenge. So back in I would have said probably somewhere circa 2015 or so, the Oculus Rift and the Rift S were these, for the first time, very affordable consumer grade VR headsets that you could play games in, and they were, they actually worked quite well. But again, they were tethered, and so you'd have this terrible experience. There's all these. I remember there's one great game. It's called Robo Recall, and it was a real fun sort of robot kind of shooting game kind of thing. But very quickly, you'd be doing this thing. You're like, I'm caught in the cord.
Yes.
But then, of course, as the technology has come along, those VR headsets have moved into being able to do things wirelessly and also self-contained, meaning the computing is happening on the actual headset
in the thing
itself,
that's on your head. Yes.
Right, and not relying on a computer that you're connected to for that processing. So in that space, so that is kind of happening, I think, when a lot of people think of these helmets, when the difference between, for example, virtual reality versus the way that these devices are being positioned, which is spatial, is really about that pass-through as well. So technically, when you put these headsets on, you are completely covering up your actual eyesight. So if the device is on, you can't see anything.
Right.
It's just a black, staring into the black void of your soul or whatever, right? But then when the device is on, of course, it's got
cameras which actually monitor your surroundings.
Yes, I think, I want to say, I can look it up to verify, but I think it has 20 cameras.
Maybe less than that, but there are a lot of cameras.
A lot. 12, 20, something with a 2, but more than 2. What it does too is, so the environment that you see is a pass-through of your actual physical environment versus other experiences people may be familiar with, where you go into a complete virtualized rendered environment.
And I would say that there is the other thing, which is augmented reality, where you will have something like glasses. So for instance, if you look at what Meta is doing with Ray-Ban, where you have glasses where it projects something onto your field of view, that is getting closer to augmented reality, where you have this blend of what you actually see with your eyes and a superposition of what's coming out of the process.
And that's a key distinction, because with augmented reality, you can still see through whatever the layer is. It's just something that's layered upon your vision. So Apple specifically called out. So when you see the things, it'll say the spatial computing device. So that raises the question. The first question for most people have is, what on earth is spatial computing? And essentially, the definition that I have here is that it essentially refers to any digital system that can understand and interact with a 3-dimensional world around us. So it merges the physical and digital by mapping spaces using sensors, cameras, and AI or any sort of machine learning to let users essentially see, touch, and manipulate digital content as if it were in your physical world, right? So when you're on these things, and we will put these on and record internally, so you'll see us like grabbing stuff, whatever. Obviously, those things don't exist in this plane of existence, but it's still there. And what is fascinating about, again, a device, and there's other headset manufacturers are working in this space now too. I mean, Meta Quest is also doing work in this space.
Samsung have just come out. Is it Samsung?
Yes, Samsung has just released a very high-end, half the cost, I think, of the Vision Pro, which still I think retails in the US for $3,500.
Something like that. Yes, it's not cheap.
Not cheap. And I think it in itself is an experimental technology.
Yes.
Right. But yeah, and so other people are working on this space as well. But the key difference from that, again, thinking about a VR thing, was that the VR, go back to those tethered days. Your headset had no idea where you were.
Right.
At best, you would even have to manually tell it how far off the floor you were.
Right.
Right.
I know. So, I remember those days.
Yeah. You'd enter and it's like, what's your height? And you're like, excuse me. You found out quickly there was a disadvantage when you kind of lied about your height.
This is designed to be seamless. And you'll see, you'll put the headset on and it can work out sort of where you are, where you're looking, everything about your environment. So you don't have to think about it. You don't need to sort of pre-program it or anything.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, again, I get excited about the category as well, because I think there's this really interesting potential mix between the spatial computing area, where we have devices that can sense the world around us. Again, when we're talking about the integration of AI elements and things like that, that is interesting. But also, I think I've mentioned this before, but the sort of like burning, I don't know if it's even secret, this burning interest in ambient computing, right? Where the environment, we basically hide the technology. And the environment, we can pick up our sort of cues from processing or decision making in more humanistic ways, like lights changing color, temperatures changing, textures.
It's fully immersive.
And more of a natural environment change, as opposed to like, the blinking red dot or something like that.
That's right, yes.
But
And of course, the interesting thing is, that's what Apple are trying to emulate with this. And I think this is part of the discussion, because you put it on and it feels like you're still in the physical world, but that's a physical world that can be digitally manipulated. So now you are immersed in a computing environment, hence the spatial computing.
And we've talked before, again, we were even talking, I think yesterday we recorded that special, we did a special Halloween episode, which I hope everyone listened to. But where we were talking about, can you trust what you're seeing between, but this is leaning directly into that, right? Like
that's exactly it. Yes.
There's no, you're not being fooled by it. Like, and very quickly,
this is the digital mirror.
That's right. Right. And how do you see yourself? What would be, now here's speaking of, I didn't even think about this when we were talking about that. So if you haven't heard it, go back and it's our Halloween little Futures Improv special. But the Futures mirror of what would happen if you look into a mirror while wearing the Vision Pro, like the nested levels
gets a little meta on multiple levels.
Yeah.
So we're going to don these. So we ought to do this one at a time, because while we're actually doing it, everything is going to go silent. So I don't know whether you want to start unpacking yours, because you've got the fancy case.
So I'll just, so one thing I will know. So have you, I do want to ask this, and you can maybe put yours on while I ask you.
Okay.
Because they'll still be able to hear you.
I'm going to do that.
Have you traveled with yours much?
I have traveled about once with it. Yes, because I know you've had experiences.
Yeah. So the question is Sean that guy? The answer is yes. I am that guy. I have taken it onto an airplane. The longest flight I used my Vision Pro on was a transatlantic flight from Phoenix all the way to, it was thankfully a direct flight from Phoenix to Paris.
Right.
And so it was about an 11-hour flight-ish, something like that. And the Vision Pro, it was amazing to have. But I will say there are some very just basic challenges with traveling with a Vision Pro. And that is just the size. Well, one, the expense. So it's like, being very cautious about the delicate. I don't want to smash it.
What are you going to do with it? Yes.
Right. But also the bulk of, that little case, while the case feels great in your hand and it has it feels almost like an astronaut, like spacesuit to me. Like it has this really.
That's your oxygen supply. Yes.
Like there's something, of course, just the pinnacle of Apple design with this stuff is even the box, the case that you get, feels special and cool, right? But
it's $200.
I know. No one said that feeling comes cheap.
Being an astronaut.
Yeah, right. Probably, but But the biggest downside I've had with it is just its size.
Right.
So like that does not fit into a backpack.
Yes. Yeah.
Well at all.
Yep.
And so that has been sort of a challenge. But again, what I loved about being able to travel with this thing is anywhere you go. And again, when we turn things on and we turn our recordings on the inside, so we'll be able to mix that into the finished video, you can see it. Again, you can bring a unlimited sort of personalized digital workspace with you.
Right.
So,
right.
When you're sitting in row 14G, well, 14, that's way too far the front.
Right.
48G or whatever it is in the back.
Bathroom seats.
Yeah, that's right. And you've got because I used to try to work with my laptop and I can't do that anymore. The seats are too close. I can't get in the clamshell. Yep. This was amazing because I was literally connected because one of the things you can do is you can connect your computer.
And you have a full wraparound screen. And I don't think we're going to be able to show this because you don't want to show the whole world what's on your laptop, but it really feels like you've got about sort of 6 monitors in front of you, just spread out in front of you.
No, it's wonderful. And so what I was able to do is connect my computer to my Vision Pro, have the lid almost closed, just big enough for me to get my fingers into the keyboard because I didn't need to look at the screen.
Yes, because it's all in front of you.
It was all in front of me. And you couldn't, there is a virtual keyboard, but that's where you want to type in like a word, that's okay. But like to actually like type is not okay.
Yeah.
But all right, so I'm gonna take off my headphones and put my Vision Pro on.
Okay, right.
And Andrew, if you maybe one thing I'd be curious while I'm doing that, if you I'll ask you this question.
Okay.
Where do you find that you spend the most amount of time using your actual headset itself?
So really good question, really important. And I will actually go back to when I used to use the Meta Quest headset. So this is sort of the precursor, which really is sort of fully immersive. And like many people, I ended up using it more for games than anything else. It didn't really seem to be much use for anything other than sort of playing sort of half a dozen games. The Apple Vision Pro has been completely different. I actually see no point when I put it on in terms of playing games. Where it comes, it's 2 things. In fact, actually, I'll add 3 things to that. One is as a work environment. Yeah. So you mentioned the virtual screen. I find I can work in this for hours at a time, and it is amazing when you've got these screens in front of you. You can work in a way that you simply cannot do with physical monitors in front of you. So I find it an incredibly conducive work environment. And of course, you can do various things like you can. If this video is working at the moment, and I'm not quite sure whether it's working or not, but you can see it looks like I'm in the office. I can sort of see Sean, I can see the kid here, but you can sort of blank all that out so you can put yourself in somewhere that is really sort of very pleasant. So but actually, if this is sort of working, I can't remember where I am now. But you can see, Sean has gone.
Oh,
the room has
Andrew.
Gone. I mean, this sort of beautiful sort of serene space on the top of a mountain somewhere. I wish I could remember where it was. So you can actually isolate yourself, and that's actually very nice for when you're working.
Yeah.
But then the other things are obviously sort of watching sort of immersive video is a groundbreaking experience and something that you really cannot experience unless you put one of these headsets on, where it's not only 3-dimensional, but it feels physically as if you're there. But then just looking at photos, and then this sounds really trivial, but anybody who has had an iPhone for the last decade or so has been able to take panoramic photos, but you've never had any way to actually view them. In the headset, you can now look at these panoramic photos, and it literally looks as if you're there at that point when you were taking the photos. And again, it is very hard to explain just how profound this is in terms of remembering those experiences or sharing them with others.
Yeah, no, it's incredible. It is funny as I'm putting reassembling all my stuff. I feel like I'm putting like a dive helmet now. Where I'm
I know
we're going to go on deep sea exploring, And, but I think that's exactly it. And like I actually don't use the virtual environment thing very often.
Right.
On an airplane, I did.
Yes.
Right. That's one of those places where for me, I'm like, goodbye.
Yes. Yeah. Just fade out everybody and everything around you.
And that's something if you're used to VR environments, you're used to that kind of space. But yeah, it is one of those things. I find it so fascinating that you can bring the workspace that you create. You can just bring it with you as you kind of. Literally go anywhere.
Right. Yes.
And again, for travel, and I think I've shared this before. I use my Vision Pro, almost daily. There are some days where I don't, but but for the most part, I use it daily. For example, last night I watched the season finale of Slow Horses, and the best way possible. It is 5 feet from me and like 15 feet wide.
So this is where we differ, because
Right?
I find when I'm watching sort of movies or TV shows like that, because my head isn't moving, the weight of it just sort of comes down.
Oh,
so
interesting.
I'm fine when I'm working, because I'm
you're
active.
your neck is engaged.
But watching stuff, I'd far rather actually have a physical screen in front of me.
Oh, see, that's interesting because, and I do wonder. So I'm looking at, also what was new when with Apple's kind of refresh of the Vision Pro. It was also they introduced a new strap.
Right. Yes.
So the strap that I can kind of turn my head. You can kind of see it has this like
the knit strap.
It's like the fancy soft knit one.
Yep.
But if you only wear that one for an extended period of time, it puts the weight kind of very on your brow, on your nose.
And we have to say this is heavy.
It is.
You notice you're wearing it.
Yes. Yeah. Everyone notices you're wearing it.
Well, yeah. Not just you.
Oh my gosh. It is. It's really interesting in that sense, but because it is it's wild, but also, so what the strap so they came out with a new strap that's the same knit, but also comes across your head.
That's right. Yes.
Because again, I think for photos,
which we don't have yet because we're not rich.
No, but I have a strap.
Right. We actually both have these sort of third party straps.
Yeah. So I bought it's a Belkin third party, and it's funny because it actually looks like a 3D printed buckle. But for me, that was a game changer because it took the weight off just enough where I can. So for me, like I literally will watch movies, TV. Right. I can sit in it for so long. When I take it off,
we might have to have an offline conversation about your personal life. Sean living in his own little world.
That's right.
He doesn't even realize he has a wife and kids anymore.
That's right. The night it's always at night, and the house is quiet. Right. But also, it's like again, I've got 2 small kids, and I'm like, you know what?
But you can just tune them out now.
Or the mess. You can be like, this isn't real. This isn't real. I live in a clean house.
This is actually the reality of spatial computing. You just sort of turn the dial and everything disappears.
That's it.
Yes.
Yep. So yeah, it's quite entertaining. So I'm turning on my spatial, or not my spatial, but my screen record, and it is interesting. So when you are, so right now, again, we'll find out in post if this actually works.
We are actually recording because there's nothing to tell you.
No, when you first turn it on, you get this little green. If you use other Apple products, there's always like a green icon when something, or a little green dot that is telling you an app is using video.
Right.
Yellow is microphone. The green dot is for a video, and you see that momentarily, but it fades away.
Right.
And so now it's like, well, I trust that it's still recording.
Right.
But so if this works, and again, if not, hey, this won't be spliced in. But again, you're seeing my view. So you can see Andrew, and I've got our show notes pulled up in this giant. So this is just a Pages document, like I would.
Okay, right.
And
so you've got everything up there.
And the nice thing about this too is, unlike what I often have to do on my laptop is like squint and pull it larger for me, it is at a beautiful resolution, just kind of hovering over there. It doesn't, no eye strain. It's very fluid and easy to use. And if you're looking, on my screen, what I'm looking at, that was the definition of spatial computing right there.
Right.
And so, so you can see here, and in proof, I do actually prepare for these episodes, if you can believe it. Now, whether we use these at all, that's the different story.
Okay, this is where actually you'll discover it's not recording, so we will still not believe you.
That's right. You'll never see. And the beautiful thing is I can just close my laptop down too, because that's all I was using my laptop for, was for those notes.
Okay, right. So
which I don't even need.
Now you've got them right in front of you.
I got them right in front of me.
Yeah.
And of course, and one of the new things with the suite of 26 OS releases, so Vision OS, there's iOS 26 and iPad, is the addition of these things called widgets.
Yes.
So before you could have all these different windows kind of floating, and you could, you could add different things. Like I'll grab the music app here, which again, if you're watching, you'll get a glimpse into.
And these are things that you can put on the wall. So again, if you can see the video, you can see in mine, I've actually got a window here, and I'm going to stand up. This may not work, but if it does, it actually looks like I'm looking out of the window.
Go do
so
that.
if I go and do that,
just watch your headset, your headphones. You can kind of see it.
Yeah. So if you could see that, it literally looks like I walked up to a window, look left and look right, look up and look down, and it actually looks like a window that's looking out over Lisbon, which was where I was a couple of weeks ago, and it literally looks like this is the view outside of a window.
Yeah, which is really cool. And the widgets are kind of fun. So like on my screen, I'm saying that obviously to tell my future self to cut to this. So if you look at from my perspective,
right.
I just on the wall as we're sitting here, sort of building this sort of command center of podcasting studio. I've got a Apple Music thing, which is kind of cool that they let you do with these widgets, basically posters.
Right.
So it's kind of neat. So instead of just like a traditional playlist or something like that, like I can put out. So this is just the baseball mix from Apple Music, where hi, the World Series right now. I'm coaching a little league team. It's all kind of crazy. So baseball is on the brain. And so it's kind of nice. I can put this poster up that just looks like a band poster that you would have. And of course, you can then interact with it by just turning the music on, whatever. Yep. But also you can see we've got weather, time, and, I would say you're unlimited in those. But the reality is we found out even as I was building this, I crashed my system. It was like system overload. But that is one of the things that I think is also, kind of interesting about that we learned with the new M5 update was also kind of because, of course, when there's an update, it's now it can do this better, this more, this better. And so you also learn a little things I think are pretty interesting. And one of them that I wanted to talk about was kind of like the technological perspective of the foveated rendering.
Yes.
So that's a fancy word. So I had to look up the...
I was going to say, how long did you practice saying that?
Yeah, well, and I was like, what is the singular? It's like and it was like, is it fove or fovea?
Yeah. But this is where it works like your eyes work, where everything sort of snaps into sharp focus exactly where you're looking, but it doesn't render outside that little sweet spot.
Yeah, that's it. And it's so what's really kind of clever, right, is so, because again, when the M5 came out, it was now we can render even more accuracy and clarity of what you're seeing. Because again, if you're looking from the perspective of inside the helmet, everything you're seeing is being rendered.
Right.
So even though it looks like, I'm just looking through goggles into the real world, you're not.
Yes.
You're looking through the video rendered. So camera systems, right, are both optical and there's LiDAR and there's other sensors that are scanning the world that even do depth perception.
Right, yep.
Right? And that all that information is coming back, being computed, and then being displayed as close to real time as we can get it.
Right.
Which is when you actually stop and think about how tall of an order that is for a technology to do that. I mean, I think we've gotten kind of lazy in the sense that our phones, our laptops are so overpowered in terms of what we normally throw at it that we were like, compute is easy. Until you get into something like some kind of mixed reality environment or headset, when you're like, no, for me to turn my head and see no lag or jitter.
See, that's it.
Like
but this is it. Just to extend this a little further, and yes, you can feel that the technology isn't perfect, but it is pretty good. So I can really quickly forget that I'm wearing a headset, and it just looks like I am in the studio. But then when you think that everything I'm seeing has been rendered by a processor, which means that processor could actually manipulate everything I'm seeing. And it would still look as if I'm in reality, but in a different reality.
Yeah.
That is, and then you take that 2 or 3 steps further. So you think about what we can do with AI rendering and AI video now. We are not that far from this whole virtual reality, which I think of as being actual reality, being a figment of an AI's imagination. So we are so close to you sitting there, Sean. You could be replaced by a duck that looks like a real life duck wearing headphones and an Apple Vision Pro. And it would look like reality, but now my reality has been warped.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, in a asynchronous way, we're there. Right.
Yes.
In a live situation, it's just more compute power.
Right.
Yes. The minute because we can already do that. We can visually scan in the image that I'm seeing and convert that and hide it and mask it and do all the
that's right.
Do all the tricks.
Yes.
But that is in some ways that is probably not far off of a linear progression of just the compute power.
Yes.
Now the tension, I think, always with it, because I think that is a great point, because it also it picks on so many of these pieces of also, again, questioning the fidelity of what you're seeing. Right.
That's exactly it. Yes.
I mean, again, you can also attack the philosophical. It's a bottomless pit of fun when you say are you actually seeing anything? Right.
Right.
But if we suspend that and just say, yes, we're agreeing that we all live in the same shared physical space. Right. When I look over here at my mixing board, right, I reach out and I touch it, and the latency is so so small, so it's so accurate that when I see through my headset, my finger touches, it's the same time. So my brain doesn't register that there's a disconnect between, because if you do, you're going to get seasick. I mean, that's kind of and there are still groups of people out there that are very sensitive to any sort of VR headset. I mean, I think there was a study, I'll see if I can try to find it. I think it was an Air Force study, because they have, Air Force has been using a lot of, in all like NASA and pilot schools have been using sort of these like virtualized environments for training purposes for a long time. And I think they had done a study where basically the result was, the estimate is about 10% of the population just cannot physically stomach these types of devices. And
I would say from what I've seen, especially seeing that at ASU, we've got this virtual reality learning environment.
The Dreamscape.
I actually think it's higher than that 10% that feel some sort of nausea after a few minutes. But with these headsets, I mean, I am susceptible to motion sickness, so I can't wear something like an Oculus for too long. I do not get that with these headsets. I mean, the latency is so low, and the responsiveness to your physical environment so good with the Apple Vision Pro that I can wear it for hours and not have that sense.
Yeah, no, it's incredible. And I'm like, while you're talking, I'm going to pull up a Safari window with the Apple Vision Pro, because I'm curious about the newest like rundown of these things. But that's exactly it. I mean, so your brain, and again, for some people, any sort of latency, they're very susceptible to it. Even in the Apple Vision Pro, your eyes are only like an inch or so away from the actual display, right? So, and there are times, even for me, I think I was telling you, when when you first put your headset on and it gives you like, just like your iPhone, it's like passcode, right?
Right.
And then it does like the little so instead of like the fingerprint, it does an iris check, right?
Yes.
It's
an iris scan, isn't it?
Yes. And sometimes those are so close that I'm like, my eyes go crossed, But it's interesting because you can actually, when that's happening, you can actually see the UI adjust and actually pull it back for a second. Because, we talked about the number of cameras, and I need to find out exactly how many are in there. But one of the other pieces that's interesting is there are also many cameras pointed in onto your...
That's right, yes.
So all of these, because the other thing we haven't mentioned yet is how you actually navigate the UI as we're doing it. You'll notice we're not holding controllers.
We're just making weird sort of gestures with our hands.
Yeah, and sometimes you see us do this, right? But we're not holding. Even though the new update, there are the PlayStation VR controllers are now able to be paired for gaming and other applications and things like that. But you don't need them because when you go through the initial setup, you literally just put your hands out in front, and the camera basically identifies your hands so it can see them versus your environment. And all of the UI is done incredibly by your eyes. So your eyes, what you're actually looking at, and it's incredibly intuitive where like, even for people who have, sort of try these things, like who have never worn any sort of device, is incredible at how just instantaneously you like.
Well, for most people, not all people.
Sure, of course.
And I've given this to guests who are sort of looking at their hands and saying, well, what do you do? And to me, it's intuitive. You turn your hand, you pinch, you move, just like you would a physical thing. And it's, for some people, it is actually surprisingly hard to get, but then others just get it immediately.
Yeah, immediately. And it's kind of one of those, like, for me, I still remember the first time, I think I was your headset I tried on for the first time. And right away, you're like, oh, this is different. Because again, I've been used to these other, more, I would say, more classic VR experiences. But right away, you're like, wait, I just look at it? Because, when I compute like normally like on my laptop or something, I don't look at the stuff. It's baked in muscle memory. I use keyboard shortcuts for everything. Or even just navigating a window, like I don't look at the close button. I just know where it is. Or roughly, you're like, it's in the corner, click, click, click. But very quickly it was like, oh wait, I just look at the UI, the user interface item, a close button, a space bar button, or whatever the button is. And then I just gently tap my fingers together, and that's click. Right. And now what's interesting new, and I'll future Sean, cut to my video. I'm just looking. So hands are holding still. I'm just looking at a Safari window and just using my eyes, I'm scrolling it.
Right.
So, which is
mind control over Safari.
Yes. And so suddenly you're just like, and at first you're like, whoa. But then, right away you're like, okay, this is pretty awesome that you're just by looking, you're learning to navigate these. And of course, beyond the cool factor of just being able to do this, for me, one of the most powerful things is thinking about all of the accessibility elements of how this can be used for for people, for individuals, for whatever the situation is, having these multimodal ways of controlling this environment is incredible, because you can also attach your Bluetooth keyboard and mouse.
Right. Yes.
Right. And you can use those to navigate content windows and type and things like that.
But which again gets this idea of a spatial computing environment. So now you've immersed yourself in an environment where sort of you are physically interacting with this virtual world.
Yeah. Okay, so I looked this up. So I'm like, okay, I'm looking at the spec page for, and of course this is going to be the updated one, but the external hardware is all the same. Of course, they don't give you it's like, all right, so someone do the math. 2 resolution main cameras, 6 world tracking cameras, so that's 8. 4 eye tracking cameras, that's 12. True depth camera, maybe that's just 1. So 13. LiDAR scanner, 14. 4 internal measurement units. So what are we at? Is that 18?
Yep.
A flicker sensor, 19. Ambient light sensor, 20.
Right. Okay.
So there are 20,
not sort of specifically
not,
cameras, but
not
a whole
necessarily
bunch of
visual
sensors,
cameras, but something that is viewing the world.
Right,
we'll call it that way. So there's 20 of those in there, and then it has. Well, then I'm like, and then it has external stereoscopic 3D main camera system and a spatial photo and video capture system that uses an 18 millimeter and an f2.0 aperture.
There's a lot of stuff.
There's a lot of stuff in here.
But this actually is also the challenge. So impressive as it is, this is a lot of hardware to have strapped to your face.
It is.
Which is where the question comes up, just how scalable is this? Is this still a really niche product? And where does it go from here? And of course, this is where people are now talking about sort of glasses. So the conversation has been, Apple has shown what you can do with video pass-through if you're willing to sort of deal with the weight. And as we've said, it's fantastic if you have a work environment with that. But people want something smaller and lighter. And ideally, people just want to put on a pair of glasses and be in this environment. And it's incredibly hard to shrink all of this down into a pair of glasses. But this is where both Meta have come out with their Ray-Ban glasses, which they don't do the immersive environment, but they do project stuff into one of your eyes. And Apple purportedly is working on something similar. So they're now beginning to ask, well, how do we scale this down into something which gives you some of the experience, but just as something that you slip on and slip off?
Yeah, I mean, I think because people have asked me, of course, when you have these things, they're like, wow, yeah, but where is it going to go and how many do they sell and stuff. But I do think what is going to be interesting, and again, my perspective on it, and I have absolutely zero inside knowledge. If I did, like I said, I'd be on a yacht somewhere in the Mediterranean. So I have no inside knowledge, but from what it looks like, just again, from a futures perspective, as we track these sort of signals and trends and things, is what we're kind of seeing is, one, I think the desire for this augmented glasses that has been around for a long time. It
has, yeah. And you remember Google Glass? This was a long time ago now. Well, actually, that didn't go well publicly.
No,
you
not
had
at
this
all.
massive public outcry with people wearing these glasses with the little sort of sensor there, feeling as if it was an invasion of their privacy. So that project died really fast. But the learning from that technology and that experience is now informing where we're going.
Yeah. And of course, you can get very nitpicky and people will say, well, that wasn't really augmented reality because it wasn't.
It was a projection into the eye.
It was a projection and it was this little tiny screen. But that's not dissimilar for some of the challenges with like the Ray-Ban glasses now as well, because they have cameras.
That's right.
Them.
Yes.
And that does raise a very interesting, especially social. I mean, the technical side is quite simple. But it's the social aspect of comfort and social norms of like, we've kind of grown accustomed to I was reaching for my cell phone, but it's over there. We've grown accustomed to this idea of like, everyone's got a camera, video camera in their pocket. And, people pull their phones out and start recording all the time. That's still different than the signaling of just having a conversation.
See, that's
and either knowing or not knowing about
whether somebody is recording you. Yes.
Which I think is really interesting.
Yeah.
But coming back to like, where is this thing going, right? Is I think what we're seeing is there is the sort of the North Star, if you will, goal of getting true augmented reality, because also that's less power, less compute. If we don't have to render the world, if Vision Pro doesn't have to render this visually for me, that's easier.
Yeah.
But
also it limits your options enormously.
It does. Yes. And also, I mean, if you think about the glass, the framework for that, the physics is not there yet for the chemistry that has to happen in terms of battery processing power.
That's it.
All of that. I mean, we've come a long way, and the Meta Ray-Bans are a great example of where we can get so far, but that's still not where people envision sort of like if you kind of don that futuristic viewpoint of like something that looks indistinguishable from regular sunglasses or eyeglasses that you would put on that would also give this power.
Right.
But what I see is a very interesting potential to have a stratified ecosystem, right? Where the glasses, that might be your everyday walk out of the house item that you put on, right? Your keys, wallet, you throw on your glasses. I'm also a big proponent in using headphones as augmented reality.
Okay, yes.
Right? So things that
change your environment, yes.
And also being able to communicate, like if that would be, because I don't wear glasses. I never have. I wear sunglasses. I have to. We live in Arizona. But I don't wear glasses. So it would also, I wonder from even myself personally, like, what will it take for me to
actually do that?
Wear them for all the time?
And to me, this is part of the question. So yes, you can see that the excitement around the tech and say, wouldn't this be great if we do this, that, or the other? But to me, it raises a lot of questions. So I think about myself, and yes, I use the headset and I use it as a working environment. I enjoy it. But I don't need it.
Yeah, true.
And same with augmented reality. It might be cool, it might be interesting, but do I need it? Actually, I don't think I do. And I think that we have to think critically about sort of where are we being sold something where we're told that this is going to be life-changing versus how do we have the discernment to decide actually what do we need or what don't we need?
Yeah, no, very true.
Does it bring joy to us? Does it sort of enhance our ability to create value? Or is it just something that we're being sold?
Yeah. Well, and that's always the question when there's a new tech, right? Is this solving a problem? Like it's a solution to a problem that nobody has.
Right. Yes.
Right.
Yeah. And of course, the counter argument is that we're incredibly creative and innovative beings. So if we do have something new, somebody is going to find some way of using it that creates value.
Yeah, absolutely. And, and again, the way I see this perhaps playing out over time is this stratified layer of you've got the glasses for the lightweight everyday. You have headphones for another audio. Because again, do you prefer having interaction with your world via visual or audio?
Can I just ask you, do you wear headphones around as
all the time?
Yes.
I don't. I wear them as if they were a part of my body.
And I will not because I feel as if it disconnects me from the world around me.
I seek that. It's a universal thing. Well, it used to be, right? Now they've gotten so good with pass-through. You get on an airplane, that's the first thing you do is like, don't talk to me. And now people, if they see your earbuds and they're like, because they know you'll still hear them.
Yeah.
But no, I wear them all the time.
Right.
Like
maybe this is a differentiating factor. People who do and people who don't. And yes, I look around and I would say, look at our students. More of them, I think, wear headphones or AirPods or whatever than don't.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm just old school. I want to be connected to reality. I do not want it filtered through electronics.
Yeah, and it's interesting because I probably would not wear them as much if they didn't do pass-through.
Yeah.
But because you can get this environmental pass-through, for me, I really enjoy it.
Right.
And I use them, I use them for everything.
Right.
Like when I'm not, so I have them in all the time for the most part. But like even going grocery shopping or something, I'll wear them there. Yeah. Because I'm just I'm listening to podcasts, listening to
maybe
music.
This is why the headset's going to take off because there's a bunch of people like you around who sort of somebody hands you a piece of tech and says, augment yourself with this. You're going to strap it on and that is going to be the new you.
And the things I look for, even just Audible, right? Like my phone can know so much about my environment.
Yep.
Like feed me information. Like when I'm in a Trader Joe's, right? Like tell me what's on sale or what's new, or assuming I want that, right? Otherwise it's a nightmare scenario of like, make it stop.
Yes,
all the noise. But I'm like, or often, you're gazing out the window on an airplane and you're like, where am I? What is that? And
Which plane is this?
Yeah. Where am I going again? But I've often thought, I'm like, well, which mountain range is that? You pull up the little, if it's working, you pull up the little GPS thing on the back of your seat thing. And it's like, sometimes it tells you, but although it's not, it's kind of a very macro map. And I'm like, how cool would that be to look and have this thing tell me what that is, or situational awareness, or again, you live in a historic city. Some cities around the world have done these incredible jobs of when you're standing at a particular point in the city that maybe there's a a famous photograph, for example, of a historical time. Again, in Europe, for example, there are some amazing places in the Netherlands where you can stand at a corner and they'll have a big placard that has the same image from post-war of the destruction, for example, of a neighborhood.
Yep.
So you see it as it is today, and then you're standing in the exact same point of view from where that photograph was taken, where you can see the destruction.
Right.
And I'm like, what an amazing opportunity to overlay that history or to learn about what has happened here at this moment in a way that is
yet
personal.
I'm listening to this and I'm thinking, information overload. I just want to be. I do not want to be swamped. At what point does this become noise? And I think this must be a personality thing.
Well, and I guess in my vision, it's not being forced on me.
Right.
It's there, and it's like
your choice.
And it's like, ding, there's information here, and I'm like, yes, tell me more about this because I want to learn. Also, probably as you might guess, I think my whole family is this way. We're like the best/worst people to go on a tour because we will be asking questions.
Right.
Tell me more about this thing and when did that happen? And and then sometimes those poor tour guides are like,
just put the glasses on and shut up. Yep.
Please, sir, can you just turn on your thing and just please leave us alone?
Yeah. But I find this so interesting because now you've got the idea of the earbuds which connect you aurally. You've got the glasses that connect you visually. This is a sort of an overlay or a filter that we're moving toward as a society.
Yeah.
And it's very clear from our conversation that there is no right or wrong way forward here. Apart from the fact that it feels like we should be talking about where the value to us being human is.
Exactly.
In these sort of filters that come between us and the world we live in.
Absolutely. And these augmented mediums too, because, and again, in that stack, and then at the bottom of that stack or pyramid or whatever is like the actual full-blown headset.
Right. That's it. Yes.
Because I see this, again, in just looking at my own work, again, places where I feel compelled and drawn back into this environment. One is, and we didn't even talked about, we've talked about before, but the immersive content, right?
Yep.
So also 3D videos, immersive videos that aren't 3D necessarily, but they put you like, we think those
absolutely
big,
there, yes.
if you've ever been to an amusement park or like where they have those, you almost like sit on a bench that lifts up in the air and you're kind of immersed in this like dome.
And I have to say, so this is one of the experiences of wearing the headset, which to me is transformative. And again, you simply cannot describe what it's like to be placed in an environment without experiencing it. And so now Apple have got a number of these immersive videos, and the experience is quite unbelievable.
Yeah, absolutely. And just the power, again, this power of being able to put you, the viewer.
And these have the power to change you.
Absolutely.
Yes.
I mean, because it's not, and again, this is one of the places where Apple can flex their capabilities, both in terms of, because of Apple TV, they have a lot of production of, stuff that they can get access to places and people that otherwise would be difficult.
Yep.
And also, if you ever have this experience, you'll understand my deep need and desire for a black magic.
right. So we can reproduce this for other people.
Exactly.
So you can have the transformative experience of being in the studio with us. You will never be the same again.
Someone just donate a $30,000 camera to us and you can sit right here. Right. But I think what's really cool about, again, that experience is the transformative nature of being able to take someone, we were joking before about the memory donors, right? But something second to that would be an experience donation, right? Of like, I joke that I will never climb. I'd have negative interest of ever trying to summit Mount Everest. Like that is just not something. However, it would be amazing to see that perspective.
See, that's right. And actually experience it.
And actually experience it in an immersive way that's not just a 2D photograph or something like that.
Yeah.
And that's very powerful. And I think also, again, from an accessibility standpoint, if there are things that you just would not be able to do because of physical limitations, age, region, whatever, that those experiences could still be brought to you. And it's not, it's not going to be the same as if you were standing there, but it might be the next closest thing.
So as you're speaking, and again, I don't know whether this will come out on the video, but I've just brought out one of my panoramic photos because this is the simple version of this. But this is a panoramic photo I took while I was in Lisbon the other week, and I'm just sort of slowly scanning around. And to me, it allows me to Oh, I'm losing the microphone. It allows me to feel the experience of being there. This feels exactly like I was at that spot as I was taking this photo. Now I could share this with Sean, who wasn't standing there at this point, and he can also experience what I experienced. So this is such an easy way of doing that. And this begins to show you the power of this, even if you don't have the Blackmagic camera.
Yeah, absolutely. As you're talking, I'm pulling up a panorama from when I was in Lisbon, and it's same thing. So if we switch to Sean's view, as you turn around,
and move your head slowly, because I think you're going to find that even though it looks okay to you, people are going to get so sick watching this. Yeah. I'm physically sick.
Grab your barf bags, ladies and gentlemen. We're going on a ride. But so it's just incredible about how you're able to kind of see and manipulate these different elements.
And now you can share an experience in a way that we've never been able to do before.
Exactly. And and again, if for people who are listening who may already have like Vision Pros and stuff, I mean, this is also why, for a long time in Modem Futura, we were experimenting, filming in multiple cameras in spatial 3D, because you can watch those videos in a headset like this and feel as if like you're just fingertips away, which is really interesting. And also, one of the other elements is being able to take spatial photographs with your iPhone or whatever. You can take spatial images, video, and images with a headset, but to be able to consume them is just like, I mean, it's transformative. Again, it's that what are those the viewers, the Viewmasters?
Yes.
It's Viewmaster come to life with your memories.
But
pictures
even
of your
more
kids.
than that, and unfortunately we can't show this because you have to be wearing the headset, but you can take a normal 2D photo and you can translate it into a three-dimensional, an AI augmented three-dimensional photo. And it is quite amazing how things pop and come to life.
I do wonder, I'm curious. I've never tried doing the spatial render and recording it at the same time to see if it's actually visible.
So you won't be able to see it. I tried this earlier. You won't be able to see it in three-dimensional. It'll just look like another two-dimensional
Just another
photo.
two-dimensional photo.
Yes.
Okay. But so it's, and again, it's one of those things. But if you think of those Viewmasters, now think of that with the images that you take, the intimate photographs that you have of your family, your kids, these places you visited, the things.
So now the question to me comes, because I do think that this is important, shared experiences. And of course, with a $3,500 headset, you're going to be sharing with about 3 other people. But what if we get to that point where you do just put on a pair of glasses and that immerses you in somebody else's world, both orally and visually? That, I think, is worthwhile considering as a shared experience. I mean, imagine this is cheap enough that you could do with it with 100 people or 1,000 people. They all put on their glasses and they just for a few minutes are in your world. Yeah,
you literally walk a mile in someone's shoes, right?
Right.
I mean, and I think that would be a phenomenal experience. And with again with traditional VR like applications, there are experiences where you can try to do exactly that.
Right. Yes. Yeah.
But what's powerful?
But it's not accessible at the moment.
But and those are also predefined.
Yes.
Right. So it's like you experience this from sometimes they do gender swapping or cultural swapping. Right. Yes. Right. Where it's like now experience this HR conversation from the point of this person from this country from this whatever.
Yes. Yeah.
But those are predefined. And what would be powerful about this is being able to like come over to someone's virtual house, and see how they do it.
That's it. Yes.
I mean, even professionally, I don't know if this is just me. I am always fascinated by looking over the shoulder of colleagues and stuff and being like, how do you work?
Right.
I'm always fascinated by that.
This begins to open up that possibility of being immersed in their world.
Immersed. And it's like an understanding, because that would be incredibly cool. I could set my environment and be like, Andrew, come over into my house.
That's right.
And play with the things on my wall.
So then there is one other thing, and people may have heard the alarm. We tried to time this for 45 minutes and we're already over.
That's okay.
But I think I've talked about this before because this is an idea that absolutely fascinates me. And it comes back to this idea of spatial computing where everything you see is digitally rendered. Now imagine that we're sitting here in our studio. Now imagine there was an identical studio layout in Japan.
Oh, yeah.
And we were connected. So we had somebody in that Japanese studio, and because all of this is digitally rendered, it will look as if they were sitting in the same studio as us. Yep. So you are now completely together. Or imagine a coffee shop where, say you had 100 coffee shops around the world, all laid out in exactly the same way.
Yeah.
People walk in, they put the headset on, and they can immerse themselves in any one of those 100 coffee shops and be communicating with people as if they were in the same space at the same
That's
time.
right. Yeah.
This is now possible.
That is now possible. And we should,
Yes.
I'm like, we should write up a grant proposal for that and let someone fund us.
Right.
Because I'm just thinking, right? I mean, thinking internationally,
Yes.
right? I mean, you have places, I mean, again, just thinking very commercially, you have places like McDonald's,
Yes.
Starbucks, that are Apple stores,
Right.
that are all around the world.
Yes.
And you could even if like the full structure is not the same, it could be the same sort of, 10 foot by 10 foot like
That's
cafe
right.
area.
As long as you've got the same physical setup, and other people have written about this,
Yeah.
and there are sci-fi stories that do this, as long as you've got the same physical setup, it means that you can navigate it even if you're not physically in that space.
And that gives me an idea. I mean, maybe we can even just, here's another thing.
Okay.
A call to action. For any of our listeners who are out there, either if you've been with us from day one or you've just stumbled across this now, if you are a Vision Pro user, developer, aficionado, whatever, please do reach out, because the table we sit at, this is nothing custom.
Right.
This is an
It's
IKEA
an
table.
IKEA table, yes.
We can share the dimensions. We could share this. I would be really curious to see if we could even replicate that just with,
Interesting, yes.
without the walls, but just with like the table setup itself.
Yep.
Because I do think that is one of these pieces. And, you and I, Andrew and I, we have this when we're both at home and we're like, hey, you want to jump on a call?
We'll use FaceTime, which, yes.
Right? So we go to these
Which
headsets.
I'm sorry we can't sort of show what this experience is like. It is bizarre. So this is one of the things that the headset will do. It will take a scan of you and replicate your head and shoulders and your hands and your
mouth,
movements, your mouth, your eyes,
your eyes,
everything in 3 dimensions. So basically, it looks like you are talking to a replica of the person that is remote from you.
What do they call it? Persona?
Persona, yes. And it is pretty good with the updated software.
The original one was very uncanny valley, kind of like,
So if anybody has used Sora 2, where you scan yourself in and put yourself into videos, it feels like that in real time.
Yeah. Or if you've ever wanted to see when you do, with an iPhone, when you do the facial recognition thing, but you don't know what it's actually doing, when you see this result, you actually see it because it's using all those cameras, those LiDARs, and it's mapping. It's incredible. And it has you smile. But what's really crazy is then when you're in like the conversation and your mouth is moving and whatever, it is trying to basically match your avatar.
And it does it pretty well. So now think of this. So we're wearing these, it's just over our eyes, and yet these cameras are actually picking up our facial expressions and they're able to replicate that in an
a way.
avatar.
And even like the hand gestures and stuff like that. Because both Andrew and I, if you've never noticed, we talk with our hands a lot.
Right.
I've accidentally whacked an X number of people, in the...
And this brings us actually back to spatial computing.
Yeah.
The idea that as soon as you're immersed in this 3D digital environment, everything in that environment becomes something that is manipulatable digitally and you can actually interact with and engage with in ways that far surpass just the simplistic stuff we've been doing in the past with virtual reality.
Absolutely. And I think, again, and maybe as a way of kind of like, I think we could go on for
a long time.
We could, and we probably should come back when if we want to dive deeper into maybe one particular area, because there's so much that we haven't, there's so much other potential to even talk about in terms of, again, where you can probably sense it, where we tend to get really excited as we think about, I mean, again, amazing devices as a technological showcase. I mean, it's still, even though Samsung has just released their high-end version, which I think is like $1,800, it has a lot of great technology in it as well. Still to this date, no consumer grade headset can compete with the amount of technology that is in these headsets. And what's really exciting is about what will that future product line look like
where will it go? Yes.
But as we figure out what it is that we want these things to be and do, right? Because as we sort of chart forward, it's like understanding, what I don't think will be the case. And I think this is a fool's errand to try to create a spatial computing or an augmented reality device that is a one to rule them all scenario.
Right.
I do really think that they will be slices of these different, from full nerd helmet all the way up to just very light touch. And I
think this is what the consumer market will dictate, which actually underlines the fact that we as consumers actually have a say in where this technology goes. It is not just solely being imposed on us, but we are part of this process.
That's it.
At least if we decide to be and choose to be.
And I think that would be, again, just like always with the topics and things that we don't talk about the Vision Pro because it's just cool. I mean, we will unpromptedly, we will talk about that. Yes. I will. But also it's about, again, because again, these particular headsets, because of their cost, are exclusive. They're hard to get. It's not something that is going to be for the masses. But the concept behind them is, I think, a really interesting signal in terms of where some of the thought process is going of where can we change things, where can we flex things, and understand. I mean, even going back within Apple itself, if you trace back when they initially released the Apple Watch, right? Same kind of thing. Oh, this is a solution to a problem, but it took time. And over time, what really sort of shook out and rose to the top was health and like personalized data on your physical health and stuff like that as like the number one reason
that people use
for those kind of things, right?
And and so that's where it's interesting to see how things shake out and where they go. So this is clearly a story to be continued.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, and again, the last thing on this is, there are critics who, look to the cost, look to and say, wow, well, they don't, it's a flop. They didn't sell as many as they're going to sell iPhones. Never was the plan, never the case. But I do think the new, the Samsung device is an indicator that there is something here in this space, that there is a growing demand, at least to experiment to find out where those demand and use cases really will be. Because again, tremendous ability and, things that we can talk about at another time is, again, using these in a professional setting to not just communicate, but also to share expertise because of the incredible advantage any headset like this gives you is the direct point of view perspective of whether you're doing...
See, that's exactly it. And one final closing thought here, which is how fast the technology is going. And this is both a danger and a massive opportunity. So anybody who is building infrastructure on where virtual reality headsets were just 2 years ago is already in the dark ages compared to where it is now and where it's going to be in 2 years' time. So the challenge there is if you're using these for, say, experiential learning or sort of allowing other people to share your experiences. How do you do this in an agile way where you can keep up with the technology rather than being locked into an old and outdated technology?
I think that's a critical piece to end on too, because it's very fluid. So going into this, you understand, right? Like even these headsets as an example, they're expensive and they will be obsoleted, made obsolete, whatever. They will be out of date before you probably feel like, if you, from a consumer perspective, before you feel like you got your $3,500 worth.
Right.
But again, like I said, you can have the largest TV screen in the world.
Early adopters come in.
That's right, exactly. That role is to be a pathfinder.
That's right. Yes.
So
I guess that's it. Modem Futura, Pathfinder.
That's right. We always have been. I feel like the Pathfinder on the internet. So this is amazing, Andrew. Thank you. This has been so fun to do, and a long awaited opportunity for us to do this.
Right.
And I was pleased. This was super easy to wear the headset and wear all the.
It works really well. You get very comfortable in this.
And I was saying, if this wasn't I mean, perhaps we're depriving our audience of seeing our lovely faces from the whole thing.
And even better, because when things get tedious, I just press this little button and you disappear. And then no shore, no studio, beautiful moon on top of a mountain.
Yeah, I go to Bali. That's the one I do. Is the Bali one? That's the tropical. But yes, amazing. So again, we'll put I'll put some of the links and things that we mentioned, of course, in the show notes. And again, for all of our listeners out there, again, if you've been with us from day one or you're brand new, if you are a Vision Pro person or just an aficionado, please reach out. We'd love to see, because also we've got content that we would love for you to see in Spatial.
Yes, which we will get up.
Yep, we have some, and we're working on getting that full catalog available for the 0.1% of people who can wear them and watch them. But we want to have that out there because I think that is an exciting space as well to play with, of how we, again, just as that communication and how do we create as we continually kind of push this relational sort of podcasting idea out there as well. But again, if you're a fan of our show, please do help us by giving us a subscription, a like, a rating and review. And yeah, tell your friends, tell your family, and anybody else you think might benefit from the wildly diverse and enjoyable content that we get into, like wearing nerd helmets for an hour. You know what I mean? This is, who else is doing that for you?
There we are. Yes.
But yeah, so for me and from Andrew,
we'll see you next time.
See you on the next episode of Modem Futura.
See you then.
Demodulating signal.
Modem Futura is a production of the Future of Being Human initiative at Arizona State University. Be sure to subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your favorite shows. To learn more about the Future of Being Human initiative and all of our other projects, please visit us on the web at futureofbeinghuman.asu.edu.
End transmission.